Welcome to Ben's Business Podcast, episode number 50. This is a pre-recording of a Facebook Live video I did inside Ben's Business Book Club. It wasn't meant to be for the podcast, but I'm going travelling today, so it was a great day to publish this out for the podcast. You'll be learning how to use audiobooks to increase your reading, prioritising your reading, and creating habits of reading. So I hope you enjoy the video. Hi everyone, at Ben's Business Book Club. I just wanted to do a quick impromptu Facebook Live here and just see who joins. Patrick Long asked a question, just as you can see down below in the comments about in the post on the main feed on Ben's Business Book Club, and he said that he slipped or lacked being focused on reading and for some time now, and he's felt quite down about it, and I can relate to that situation that I was in a good while ago as well. And he's just asking us as a group for some time management or ways of prioritising our reading. So it'd be interesting to see who joins here today, and if you've got any suggestions as well, I would like to hear that. And if you're watching the replay, just leave your suggestions in the comments below for Patrick. And I'm sure Patrick and myself, and if us two have had it, many other people in this group of 1,000 members, 1,000 or more members, has had a similar problem to that, or are currently having that problem. So I think it's quite a good problem to deal with just now. I'm just going to check who's joining us. Okay, still figuring this Facebook Live thing out. It's always changing, and I'm using a different phone today to check to see who's online with me just now. So anyway, I've got three tips that I've shared before on how to get more reading done and how I get a lot of reading done. And people do ask me every so often, how do you read so many books? And the real tip is that I don't actually read that many books. I end up listening to a lot of the books that I talk about reading on Audible. So I use audible.com, and that's just Amazon's platform for audiobooks. But there's many others. There's Downpour and audiobooks.com, but the most popular one is Audible, which is where you'll get most of the popular, especially business and non-fiction books, on audible.com. And you can get the app and have it on your mobile devices just wherever you go. So literally, I squeeze in audio books, and like people use podcasts, so I listen to audiobooks instead of podcasts, and I just listen to maybe 20 minutes at a time. Or if I've got a good commute ahead or I'm walking my dog, I'll stick my earphones on and I'll get 20 minutes to half an hour, maybe 40 minutes, depends how long my walk's going to be. I'll get a good bit of reading in every single morning. Thanks for joining, Stephen. Please share any of your tips on how you get more reading done, Stephen. I'd love to see your comments on that as well. It's for a friend inside this group. So yeah, everyone that joins here, please share your tips on how to get more reading done. And that's the first one, is just listen to audiobooks instead of reading books sometimes, because you can do it while you're on the go, while you're doing the dishes, while you're cleaning your car, while you're at the gym. And that's one of the ways that I get a lot of reading done, is just by listening to audiobooks. Some of the places is walking my dog. I plug it in every time I get in the car. I've got a Bluetooth system set up. The car I use is actually a fairly old car now, and it didn't have it just has a CD player, so I set up a system inside the car so that it has Bluetooth, and it syncs. Every time I get in the car, it says Bluetooth connected, and I just press play on that device. And I bought that device off of Amazon. I couldn't tell you what it is right now, but that's a great tip. If your car's not got audio Bluetooth in the car, then get it installed, because it's worth it. So every time you get in the car, you press play and you continue on your audiobook. You go on a walk and you continue on your audiobook. You put your earphones in, or get these wireless Bluetooth earphones. It makes life even easier. My earpiece just fell off the side 2 days ago, literally. So I'm sorting that out with Sony, because that's my priority, and that brings me on to the next. The next tip basically is prioritise your reading. That's tip number 2 on getting more reading done. 1, listen to audiobooks. Tip number 2, prioritise your reading. So my earpiece breaks on my Bluetooth headset. That's #1 priority right now, because I'm going to be on a walk tomorrow morning, and if I don't have that fixed, I'm not going to get reading done, and that's a problem for me because I prioritise my reading over almost everything, because reading leads to me having better thoughts, more knowledge, and when I'm actually out in the field taking action, and it's good for your subconscious memory. Depending on what you're reading, if you're reading a lot of depressing stuff, it'll make you depressed. So make sure you're reading positives, or you drop in some positivity every so often. That's another wee mini tip, bonus tip, is that like if you read depressing stuff, you're going to get depressed. If you read things that make you feel anxious, you're going to feel anxious. If you make it stress, things about stress, you're going to feel stressed, and the same relates. So like when I listen to philosophy, or I listen to something that's really challenging me, like a good example book of that is Mastery by Robert Greene. I felt really challenged, and all my beliefs were kind of shattered in a lot of ways when I read like really life or books that change your have paradigm shifts and change your thinking completely, and you kind of feel like hollow when that happens to you. So make sure you structure your reading in a way that you're adding in some positivity or motivational books into the mix. That's what I do. I just listen to Grant Cardone when I'm feeling down after listening to too much history, or whatever it is I'm reading. So prioritise your reading above all else, and one of the ways I do that is to get up early. And this is a tip for Patrick actually. It's not about time management, it's not about prioritising reading, it's actually about prioritising, it's about changing your routine so that your routine creates extra space, which is space for fitting in reading. So that can be, so I have a 60-60 challenge. I have a sheet up on the wall there, and it's been a challenge. That's why it's called the 60-60 challenge, and my challenge was to get up at 4:45 a.m. I done that for a long time, and then I failed for a small time, or we call that temporary defeat in Ben's Business Book Club. There's no such thing as failure, and then we get back on track, like I am now. And I've been getting up at 5 a.m. The last few days, in the last few weeks, on and off, and getting up at 4:45 on and off. But that's not the point. I'm setting this as not just a ritual, but like a virtue, so that I'm up at 4:45, regardless if it's a weekend or what day it is. It's a holiday, I'm up at 4:45 regardless, and that's so every single day I've got this extra time in the morning before my daughter wakes up, before the world needs me and needs my attention. I'm up before everyone that I can think of that needs my attention or needs me to help them. Before, like Gary Vaynerchuk puts it, before he has to put fires out. So the best tip about prioritising your reading is to prioritise you and create space for you. And one of my ways to do that is to get to bed early, get to bed for 10, be asleep for about 10:30, and be up at 4:45. So 4:45 or 5 a.m, 5:30, whatever the time is that you want to get up a wee bit earlier, maybe 2 hours earlier than you currently get up. And then there's 2 hours of extra space for doing whatever you want, and that can be reading. So prioritise yourself, and then you can have space, extra space for that reading. And that's probably what the problem is. It's not a lack of time; it's a lack of priority. And number 3 is make reading a habit. It's simple. I've actually did a full Facebook Live video in Ben's Business Book Club here about making about habits, so you can watch that video and that will help you for this tip. But make reading a habit, and that's really, to create a habit you have to do it for, as they say in scientifically proven, 21 days, and extend that to 66 days to really make that a firm habit and a clear path, as I mentioned before. And you have to tread over that path often enough to make it a habit, and that's just any habit. So there's no point in just relating this only to reading, because a habit is a habit, and it's created the same way as every habit is created, and any addiction is created through a strong habit that builds into something they can't stop. So make reading an addiction by doing it every single day without a fail, and doing it to the extreme. Like for my example, I wake up, I have it in my routine, my morning routine. I even have it as a nighttime routine, which hasn't been formed as a habit for me. I find my best time for reading is in the morning. And for example, I've been off today and I've been off yesterday with my daughter doing daddy duties because no nanas have been around to do babysitting for me, so I've just taken the past few days off. And before she's been awake, I think I fitted in yesterday, in between times when she was taking naps and I was commuting, and she fell asleep in the car as well. She always does that. I fit in reading in every one of these moments, and in the morning before everyone's awake. So I've literally got it in such a habit that it's almost like an addiction. I have to keep feeding myself new information, and it really motivates me. Some, like, depending on what book it is. Again, there's some books that, for example, too much history really actually depresses me sometimes. So I switch over to something like, right now my Ben's book of choice is Pitch. Can't remember the name of the author right now, but it's a really good book. It's not about sales pitches, but it's about pitching, and this guy's a multi-millionaire investor, and he's done a lot. He basically pitches for other businesses to get them funding. So he gets, I think he said he gets a couple of million every week for other companies on average. So he's pitching to get a fund for fundraising, and he teaches us this really great method of pitching. So that's like, that motivates me learning. Like, it might not motivate some of you that aren't interested in sales and marketing and things, but when I study things that I'm interested in, if you study things that you're interested in, that knowledge automatically, like knowledge that you really want to feed yourself with, automatically leads to motivation. So people love to learn, and that's a bit of like dopamine for you when you learn something new, and that you need just a wee dose of dopamine every so often. You can just split up with music if you want, but I would rather just add in a more sort of casual book, which isn't casual at all for me really. I wouldn't read fiction books or whatever. I would rather just watch a movie if I was going to like listen to a story. So that's my tips: is create a habit and make sure that you're listening to some audiobooks, and maybe that's not the way that you learn. And if it's not the way you learn, tip number 2 for prioritizing your reading will help you better. And that just means that you create more space, so you've got time to sit at your desk or wherever you read, and sit down, put the book in front of you, and actually have some space to read it without distraction. And early mornings of the day, it seems to be what works best for me, and what I've found has worked for a lot of years now. And I had one last final tip for Patrick as well, is something that it was a guy called Ed Prince who told me. He's from where is it? Arizona in the USA, and he was a massive reader. He inspired me to level up my reading to his level. But what I noticed is he took a break from reading, and I got to a stage where I was actually feeling anxious and stressed, and I was just filling my mind with more ideas and knowledge. It was actually putting me to a stage of inaction, and that just made me even more stressed. And it almost like anchors you down when you take in too much and you've not put it into action. So what my final bonus tip advice is, which is probably the best one out of the 3, if you're feeling kind of down at the fact that you've slipped and your lack of being focused on reading, it might actually be time that you take a break from reading. So that's what Ed gave me advice on. It was, I felt like that before, he said. And what I did was I just took a massive break, and I think he said a couple of months he took off, and I did the same. I took about a month off of reading. I couldn't do any longer than that, and then that got me back into action mode and really using all the knowledge from the past that I'd learned and putting that into action. And it reminded me of the early days before I started reading, when I started my business, when I was ignorant and naive and I started my business. Made loads of mistakes, but I learned probably some of the best lessons that way without reading any books. And then when I felt kind of stupid and realised a couple of the mistakes I was making, and my business mentor actually told me to read a marketing book when I called myself an online marketing consultant. I've never read a book on marketing at that time. I was quite embarrassed at that time, so I picked up my first book, and then I went off on reading all the books I've read up to date. So my advice on reading more books is actually to stop reading for a whole month and give that a go. If you can't manage a whole month, give yourself 2 weeks, and then that stress of not reading any books because you're kind of forcing yourself to try to want to read, that might develop your kind of why you're reading again. Get that list down as well as why do you want to read, and really dive deep into that question. Why do I want to read more? And why am I not reading? Or why do I need to read? Because you said in your message, Patrick, is I need to read, something like that. So why do you need to read? And get that down on paper, like get your vision, get your why down on paper, and just have a look at that, maybe even daily, until it gets you back into reading. That's another helpful way of getting yourself back into it. Like, for example, my 60-60 challenge of or my virtue I want to create of getting up at 4:45 every morning. I have to have a strong why for that, because it's not easy for me. I'm a night owl by nature, and I'm trying to make myself an early bird, and that's not easy. So we're just creating habits here, and we have to have a really strong why behind the habit before it ever is going to form into your character and make it who you are. So you have to start with why, and you have to take a break possibly, and then you have to get that all structured and give yourself some time to think of that why, and then put it into action with these 3 steps: is audiobooks, prioritising your reading above everything, and creating space for yourself, and then number 3 is make reading a habit. I hope everyone who joined me on live here found this helpful. Please share your own tips on how to manage your time and prioritise your reading for Patrick as well. Leave it in the comments below this video, and give Patrick and anyone else who's struggling with this inaction of reading or prioritising the reading some help as well, because there's probably a lot of people in this group that could do with help on that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Watching all the way to the end. If you enjoy watching and listening to Ben's Business Podcast, I would appreciate if you could go onto iTunes and leave a review for the podcast, or even do it on my Facebook page, which is just facebook.com/Ben Laing 2, and just show some appreciation on the reviews in there as well. I'd really appreciate it. Share it with a friend, tag a friend, leave a comment and give me your feedback. Your feedback's always my fuel, as I say, and this will encourage me to keep bringing on awesome guests and delivering awesome content to you. Thank you.